Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's just do some prayers before the class. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parbrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Om Bhu Bhavaswaha Tatsavitra Varenayam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodaya Asto ma satgamya tamso ma jyotirgamya mrityorma amritam gamya Om sena bhavtu sena bhunaktu saviryam karvavahi tejasvi navadhitamastu ma vidvishavahi Om shanti 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 Om. We often hear the word destiny. The purpose of destiny is to determine when we will die and when and how we'll be born. That's destiny. And the goal of yoga is to attain the highest state of samadhi, which is known as nirbij samadhi. Bij means seed. So nirbij means seedless samadhi. And what are these seeds? These seeds are called sanskars. So in this state, nirbij samadhi, we are totally free from the subtle traces of our karmas. So sanskars are the subtle traces or subtle impressions of our karmas. We saw that in Yoga Sutras written by Rishi Patanjali. In the first chapter, first in verse number 18, he said, Viram prate abhyas purvaha sanskar shesho anya. So with the practice of yoga, there's no sanskars left. Okay. And then later on in the same chapter, verse number 51, he said, Tasyapi nirodhe sarva nirod nirbija samadhi. So he mentioned this nirbij samadhi as a goal of a yoga practitioner. Because sometimes we think that goal is just to have a healthy body, flexible body, beautiful body. Those are just outcomes, side benefits. The real goal of yoga is samadhi, and especially the nirbij samadhi. We are here to burn all those traces of our karmas. Then if all the karmic seeds are destroyed, what happens? We attain freedom from the cycle of death and birth, and also that lies in between. We also gain perfect vision, which is called Divya Drishti. Perfect vision, the highest form of intuitive knowledge. And we come to know the truth in its fullness. We become adept, a yogi in the fullest sense of the word. Before that, we are yoga abhyasi. Then we become yogis. We have reached a realm which shines through its own intrinsic light. In scriptures, we see the stories of adepts who have attained complete freedom from their karmic traces and have consequently risen above the law of karma. Okay, majority of us, we are under the law of karma. Yogi with all these practices, by removing all these sanskaras become the rulers of the karma. They have reached such a high state of freedom that while living in the realm of divine providence, because that's where they live, they can create or dismantle karmas or karmic strands at will. Their destiny is dead and they have become immortal. Okay, that's why this term yogi, we should not use it loosely. Just by doing a few asanas, we don't become yogis. With the disappearance of the karma and destiny, their intuitive wisdom is no longer obstructed, and they can see the karmas and the destinies of the others also. So this Divya Drishti has this kind of a power. From time to time, they descend from the realm of divine providence to help and guide those caught in the karmic whirlpool. To see how this is done, let me go over a story for you. In the 15th century, in the city of Benares, there lived two great saints. One name you are familiar with, Sant Tulsidas, and the other one is Baba Kinnaram. You may or may not have heard that name. Both famous for their miraculous powers and believed to be enlightened masters. One day, a barren woman went to see Tulsidas, hoping he would bless her so that she could conceive. Because in the cultural system of that time, it was a disgrace for a woman to be without a child. In fact, this was such a disgrace, it was considered a sin to even look at the face of a barren woman. Through his intuitive power, Tulsidas saw that the woman's destiny did not reveal a single karmic strand which would make her a mother, either in this lifetime or in the next 7 lifetimes. So he sent her away, saying he could not help her because there was no child in her destiny. Not willing to give up, the woman next visited Baba Kinnaram and told him what Tulsidas had said. Baba Kinnaram confirmed Tulsidas' findings. With all hope gone, the woman burst into tears, sobbing that since she had no place in society, it was better that she die. Baba Kinnaram took pity on her, and after meditating for a few minutes, he said lovingly, "Do not worry, mother, come with me." He led her to a neem tree. You're all familiar with the neem tree in his ashram. And that neem tree was planted and tended for years by Kinnaram. And he spoke to that neem tree. He said, "You have hundreds of children. That means hundreds of baby plants. Please share one of them with this woman. Her descendants will take care of your children." Then after a few minutes of silence, he told the woman that she would soon have a child. In due course, she gave birth to a healthy baby and brought him to Kinnaram to express her gratitude. Tulsidas, who lived nearby, heard about this and was puzzled. Her destiny had clearly shown that this woman was not destined to have a child. So he went into the deep meditation to find out how the barren woman came to have a baby. But he could not see the reason. Finally, he turned his consciousness towards God, who explained. After investigating and not finding a baby in her destiny, Baba Kinaram asked me. So this is God telling Tulsidas ji that Baba Kinaram asked me to bless her with a child. And when I told him I could not give her what she was destined to have, Baba Kinaram argued with me, saying that I was a useless God. If all I could provide was what destiny already had in store, why would people waste their time loving, serving, and meditating on me in that case? So I guided him to the neem tree, which through my inspiration gladly agreed to give this woman one of her children. Baba Kinnaram's life was full of such miracles. Now the question is, why do the prayers of an adept work while ours don't? The answer is clear. Such masters are free from here and finally connected there. With the sword of knowledge, they have cut the rope of karma and burnt it in their yogic fire. Prakriti, the nature, has withdrawn its veil from their third eye. They are not motivated by reward or punishment. And yet they are always in the service of the divine being. And you know what happens? The Prakriti finds great pleasure in serving such yogis. Because Prakriti has become a servant to these yogis. And the servant, such kind of a servant who loves to please the master. Just as we can see physical objects through our eyes, those masters are able to see the subtle forces of the senses, mind, ego, and the intellect, as well as the unconscious mind, the subtle impressions stored there. The fourth dimension, which is called time, is as clearly visioned to them as the objects of the three-dimensional world are to us. So that means they can see the past, present, and future right in front of them. By paying attention to the time principle, the Kal, they can clearly see what we have done in our past, because our actions as well as their results are subject to the forces of time and space. That is why yogis say that every object and experience related to is conditioned by time, space, and causal force behind the object and the experience. The three, time, space, and causation, are intrinsically linked. They're connected. The yogis who have transcended the realm of time and space can clearly see the causal seeds, the destiny of other beings whose consciousness still operates within the realm of time, space, and causation. So sometimes a person cannot see because of the ignorance, but the yogi can see way far out. And this is, we see in this story over here, that barren woman and Tulsidasji and Kinnaram also. These yogis alone can detect the loopholes in the law of karma. Because this was the loophole used by Baba Kinnaram. But this loophole was not used for his benefit. It was for the benefit of this lady. That's what the yogis do. They keep on wandering, keep on living for the pleasure and the benefit of others. Because they don't have any desire of their own. A detective does not investigate a case without a reason. Similarly, a yogi does not try to find a loophole in the law of karma without a reason. Because sometimes we think that, hey, we ask our guru to do something for us. How come we don't get those kind of miracles? There has to be a reason. The scriptures are full of examples like this about the sages who came to the rescue of those whose lives had been touched by the grace of God, but who had become momentarily caught in a karmic whirlpool. By intervening, these sages served as a conduits of divine grace. The saints tell us that a human being cannot have a right thinking or make a right resolution without satsang. That means the company of a wise person. And this is the company of a wise person when we go to a guru or an adapter. And it is impossible to be blessed with satsang without a grace of God. So satsang is needed, but satsang or the company of a wise, we cannot find without the grace of God. So if we cannot find a guru, if we cannot find a company of a wise person, at least we can pray to God. God, please create that kind of an atmosphere where we are in the company of a Satpurusha. That's what satsang is. Company of the Satpurusha. Even though God's grace is unconditional, they say a person becomes worthy of containing it through good karmas. These in turn instigate the events that lead to the sages intervening with destiny on the behalf of the divine providence. We meet these blessed ones at the turning points in our lives. We meet somebody, all of a sudden our thinking changes. We don't even know how it happened. The presence of a yogi, presence of an adapter. It's like a turning point in our life. And under their guidance, we strengthen our illuminating sanskaras. As we do this, our worldly sanskars fade away. So the power of these sanskaras, the new sanskaras, these divine sanskaras, this positivity is so much that our worldly sanskars, they fade away. And at the time of our departure, it is the illuminating sanskar that propel the wheel of life. The sage's way of working with the karmas of others helps us gain an understanding of what karma is. and how it shapes our destiny. Their stories strengthen our conviction. So that's why it's good to read the Puranas, because there are a lot of stories like this. Good to read about the Leelas of the avatars. They are full of these stories. These stories strengthen our conviction that there are great masters who can help us. If that barren woman got helped, we can get help too, if we are fully connected to them. And if there is a divine reason compelling them to do so. But this does not really help us attain freedom. Remember that. Maybe we can go through certain obstacle, but freedom from the bondage of karma, that is another thing. Divine intervention is very rare for moksha. Even though all religions acknowledge the existence of guardian angels and saints who are said to be blessed with the power to relieve human suffering in extraordinary way, humanity at large is still embroiled in intense pain and misery. That is why yogis adamantly advise us. What do they say? Enlighten yourself, for no one else can give you salvation. That we have to do it ourselves. In Gita also, Bhagavan Krishna says, he uses the word swayam. You can get the guidance, you can get the motivation, you can be shown the path, but walking you have to do. So transcending the law of karma is the ultimate goal of yoga. Yogic practices and techniques are the means of reaching this goal. These practices all have one purpose in common: to transform our habits, worldly habits, bhogic habits, selfish habits. We got to transform them and wash off negative impressions stored in the unconscious mind. Why? Because according to yogis, karmic impressions formed in the past occupy our own mind. They are not stored somewhere else in the clouds. They are in our mind. Mind field, they say, at the time of the death. So that means when we leave from here, all those karmas, the seeds of the karmas, they are stored in our mind. And this determines what happens next. That means where will we go? What kind of a body we will get? So attachment to the objects of the world creates a deep sense of fear and insecurity at the time of death. Because throughout life, we have continuously filled our mind with the idea that the objects, the world, and the people we love are integral to our existence. That we cannot live without objects. We think we cannot live without our loved ones. We get so attached. It has been reinforced over and over again. When the time comes when we must continue our journey without our family, friends, and possessions, we find ourselves at a loss. Even though we know that the parting is inevitable, we attempt to hold on. We fail and we are overwhelmed. At that moment, the moment of death, what happens to majority of the people? Insecurity, frustration, fear and grief. It all clouds the entire mind field and become the train of thought on which we are swept into the next realm. And the consequence of this is that we hopelessly carry these feelings with us and continue suffering on the account of them. To understand this better, let's take a careful look at what happens during the time of death. Obviously, we stop breathing. But before we do, certain signs and symptoms of impending death manifest in the breath. When death is the result of a lingering illness or old age, the breath gradually becomes shallow, and the pause between the inhalation and exhalation lengthens. Then, as lack of oxygen causes the thinking process to deteriorate, conscious linear thinking gradually vanishes. Awareness begins to shift between the conscious and unconscious state. At the moment of death, there is usually so much pulling and pushing going on in different levels of our beings. Body, breath, and nervous system, brain, as well as our conscious and unconscious minds. There's no time to think about philosophy. Because sometimes we think that we can recite Bhagavad Gita to a dying person. That is not the time to absorb it. Any philosophy or faith that has not become an integral part of our psyche during our lifetime fades away. Accumulated sanskaras, not only from this lifetime, but from all previous lifetimes, spontaneously cloud the mind field. The strongest sanskars or group of sanskars take the lead. Okay, the strongest, the prominent. But at this juncture, we can exercise our power of will and determination and maintain conscious control over ourselves. But only if we have worked on our will and determination. If all our life we had a weak will and determination, then at that time we cannot have much control. But if we can maintain it, we can fill our inner realm with a train of thought of our choice. If we kept thinking about God and nothing God all our life, then at the end of life, we can do the same. If train of thoughts we use as a vehicle is imbued with divine awareness, it can illuminate the realm of the unconscious. On the other hand, if we cannot maintain conscious control, we will be totally dependent on the nature of our mind's unconscious contents, which could be heavenly or they could be hellish. And most probably it could be a mixture of both. Thoughts coming, thoughts going. Another thoughts are coming, they are going. That is why the scriptures tell us that our train of thought at the time of death determines where we will go after we die. Okay? So the thoughts at the time of the departure are very important. We all know that this body is like a rented apartment. with nature as the landlord, because it is made up of Prakriti, the five elements. So nature is the landlord. We dwell in this apartment until our lease is over. During our tenancy, we must follow the laws set by nature. So that's why they say, live in harmony with the nature. Do not go against it, because violating them causes debility and disease. And this results in early eviction also. On the other hand, compliance with the nature's laws, which includes engendering an attitude of non-violence, truthfulness, compassion, non-attachment, and non-possessiveness. Ahimsa, Satya, Stev, Brahmacharya, Aprigrah. These are the universal natural laws. They create an environment in which we can live joyfully. We must always maintain the awareness that nothing in this world, including this body, is ours. Because if it was ours, we should be able to take it with us. But we know we can't. While we inhabit the body, we must discover the purpose of life. So this body is given to us to attain the purpose of life. But in order to attain the purpose of life, we got to know what is the purpose of life. Most of us keep on living 70, 80 years of this on this earth without even knowing the purpose of life. The little goals of life becomes our purpose. But that is not how it is. Goals keep on changing. Purpose stays the same. And when the lease has expired, we must graciously hand the keys of breath over to the landlord. If we give it willingly, without any resistance, we move on very gently. We must approach the next realm in full awareness that the entire world has come from the divine, exists in the divine, and ultimately returns to the divine. You can use the word divine, you can use the word God, you can use the word Brahm, whatever word you want to use. It's the same thing. It is crucial that we cultivate the understanding that in this world, I own nothing. Idam namam. I own nothing. All the objects of the world are gifts from God, which I must use to accomplish the higher purpose of life. So this beautiful human body is such a mind, a human mind and intellect, all of it, these are gifts given to us by God. When the time comes, I will leave them behind without clinging to them. This is what we have to work on. We are thankful to God. He has given us a human body. But that doesn't mean that we got to cling to it. Time comes, let it go willingly. If we are established in this awareness, it will grant a great sense of freedom at the time of death. And we can leave the body gracefully. So learn to live gracefully, learn to get old gracefully, learn to help others gracefully, and ultimately let go of it all gracefully. The unconscious mind will be fully illuminated with our self chosen divine train of thought. Then the death is neither frightening nor confusing. And we enter the next realm full of joy and purpose. For this reason, those who are wise, they gather their power of will and determination. In Sanskrit, it's called Sankalpa Shakti, to create spiritually illuminating sanskars. And how are these sanskars created? They are created through the constant practice of yoga. So now you see the purpose of yoga is to create the illuminating sanskars. And the more intense and long lasting the practice, the tighter the grip the resulting sanskars will have on the mind. So this practice is not just one day or 1 week or one seminar. Rishi Patanjali said, this practice has to be Dhirakal Nirantra Satikara Sevita. So consistency is important. And the long-term practice is very important, and love for the practice also, if you want to cultivate these divine sanskars. So that's why Rishi Patanjali said, Abhyas and Vairagya. And Lord Krishna said the same thing when Arjun said that I cannot control this mind of mine. It is turbulent, very powerful, like wind. What did Lord Krishna say? Abhyas and Vairagya. These are the two practices. And we all know that Vairagya eradicates all the conscious and unconscious tendency which spring from powerful negative sanskars. So Vairagya means stay away from the negativity. Stay away from the flaws. That is Vairagya. And Abhyas is the exact method of spiritual practices, which can further deepen the spiritually illuminating sanskar already present. So Abhyas, the positive, we need to keep positive. Vairagya is we got to stay away from the negative. So that's why we got to do the practice, do the sadhana from both hands. Getting up early in the morning, meditation, Abhyas. All day watching the eyes and the ears and the nose and the touch and the taste, so that their senses don't go on the wrong path. That is Vairagya. Not looking at something which can create a negative impression in my mind. That's Vairagya. Not saying the wrong words to somebody, to hurt somebody. Vairagya. So that's why this Abhyas and Vairagya, it's a twofold practice we need to do. The scriptures and the learned masters, they all say in one voice that the train of thought at the moment of death also determines the exact nature of the next birth. So if we want to go to a higher realm, it is in our hands. Just by wishing, it's not going to happen. We have to do the sadhana also. If you want to become from human beings to the devatas, or if you want to become a completely liberated person, this is the time to practice. Not at the time of death. Because as I said earlier, at that time, if we have not worked on our mind, Mind will be confused. It will be frustrated. Right now is the time to work on it. How we go out determines how we come back. That's our scriptures say. How we go out determines how we come back. Or I would even say where we come back. Sanskars dictate the train of thought a person will have at the time of death. They also dictate how the pranic forces will disconnect themselves from the different limbs and organs of the body. Which particular nadis will become active right before death? Is the Ida more active or the Pingala more active? Or have you done enough practice that your Sushumna become active and your Pran can leave through the Sahasrara chakra? So that's why pranayama is so important. Meditation is so important. Right conduct is so important. Throughout the life. From which of the 10 gates in the body our consciousness will depart? 10 gates. We are familiar with those 10 gates. Our eyes, our nostrils, our ears, our mouth. And there are 2 openings in the lower part of our body. And the 10th is right here, the crown center. It's up to us. Just like if we are in a house and we need to leave, and there are several doors, it's up to us which door we can leave from. We have to practice this. We have to go through the drill of it. The anatomy of death in turn determines the dynamics of our birth. In other words, it is the process of death that contains the key to the mystery of birth. And it is our karmas that determine the anatomy of death. So you can see from this how all of this is intricately connected. How we live will determine how we'll die. How we die will determine how we'll take birth and where we'll take birth again. It's a cycle. And we can make the change only right now. Right now is the time if you want to change it. That's why you have to learn to live consciously. Every act of ours, every thought of ours, every word of ours is very important. We are creating our destiny constantly. So as a yoga students, we got to learn to live with our, not just the eyes open, but fully conscious of this whole dynamic. Let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.